Overthinking is like a mental prison, a place where your dreams and aspirations are locked away, not because you lack the ability to achieve them, but because you've convinced yourself that you need more certainty, more clarity, more proof before you take the next step. It's the silent killer of spiritual confidence, the thing that makes you hesitate when you should act, doubt when you should trust, and worry when you should be at peace. You see, the mind is a beautiful tool, but when left unchecked, it can become a source of endless loops, analyzing, questioning, and dissecting every possible outcome until you're paralyzed by indecision. This is what we call the paralysis of analysis. It's when you think so much about something that you talk yourself out of it before you even begin. And the problem with this is that spirituality, faith, and confidence are not built on overanalyzing. They are built on trust, on surrender, on moving forward, even when the path isn't completely clear. Imagine a person standing at the edge of a river, wanting to cross to the other side where everything they desire awaits them. They see the stepping stones in front of them, but instead of taking the first step, they start questioning. What if the stone is slippery? What if it's not strong enough to hold my weight? What if the river suddenly rises? What if I lose balance? And as they stand there overthinking, time passes. Opportunities slip away, and they remain stuck on the shore of hesitation. This is what overthinking does. It convinces you that you need more certainty than you actually do. It tricks you into believing that playing it safe is wise, when in reality, it's just another form of fear. Spiritual confidence comes from learning to trust in yourself, trust in your intuition, and trust in the higher power guiding your steps. But when you overthink, you drown out that inner voice. You replace divine wisdom with endless mental chatter. You take something as simple as following your calling, your passion, your purpose, and turn it into a complex equation filled with doubts and second guessing. You tell yourself you're just being cautious, but deep down you know it's fear wearing the mask of logic. And what's even worse is that overthinking doesn't just stop you from taking action, it erodes your self-belief. You start questioning everything. Am I even capable? Am I making the right choice? What if I fail? What if people judge me? The more you feed these thoughts, the weaker your confidence becomes. You begin to feel like you need external validation before you can trust yourself. But here's the truth. Real confidence is not given to you by others. It's built from within. It's not about knowing all the answers. It's about trusting that you'll figure things out as you go. Look at the most spiritually confident people. They don't have all the answers. They don't wait for absolute certainty before they act. They trust. They move. They embrace the unknown with faith instead of fear. And that's why they succeed. Not because they never make mistakes, but because they refuse to let the fear of making mistakes keep them frozen. So how do you break free from the paralysis of overthinking? You take action before your mind talks you out of it. You learn to quiet the unnecessary doubts and listen to the deeper knowing inside you. You remind yourself that you don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. The people who make the biggest impact in this world are not the ones who sat around waiting for the perfect moment. They are the ones who moved forward despite their uncertainties. At the end of the day, the question is simple. Will you let overthinking keep you stuck, or will you step forward in faith? Fear has a way of disguising itself as logic, making you believe that you're just being careful, just thinking things through, just making sure you don't make the wrong decision. But the truth is, overthinking is often nothing more than fear in disguise. It takes a simple decision and stretches it out into an exhausting mental battle. It makes you feel like you're being responsible, when in reality, you're just hesitating because deep down, you're afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of making a mistake, afraid of stepping outside of your comfort zone and realizing that there are no guarantees. But here's what most people don't realize. Spiritual confidence and fear-based decision-making cannot coexist. You cannot claim to have faith while letting fear control your every move. You cannot say you trust in something greater while constantly doubting yourself. And yet, this is exactly what overthinking does. It creates endless scenarios in your mind. each one filled with a potential problem, a possible mistake, a risk you might not be ready for. It convinces you that if you just think a little longer, you'll find the perfect answer, the choice with zero risk. But that's an illusion. There is no perfect choice. There is no path without obstacles. Every decision requires trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, trust in the lessons that come with the journey. Think about the moments in your life when you felt the most alive, the most certain, the most connected to your purpose. Were those moments filled with hesitation? Were they spent going back and forth in your mind, questioning everything? No. They were moments of clarity, moments where you chose to act instead of analyzing every possible outcome. Because deep down, we always know what we need to do. We always feel that pull, that inner knowing. But fear makes us second guess. It whispers, what if you fail? What if this isn't the right choice? What if you regret it? And before you know it, you're stuck, overthinking, overanalyzing, overcomplicating what should have been a simple decision. And do you know what happens when you let fear dictate your decision? You start living a life that is smaller than what you are capable of. You start settling for what feels safe instead of what feels right. You trade purpose for comfort, growth for familiarity, destiny for doubt, and with every decision made from fear, your spiritual confidence weakens. You stop trusting yourself. You stop believing that you are capable of handling whatever comes next. You start thinking that you need more time, more certainty, more validation before you can move forward. But time won't make you more confident. Certainty won't suddenly appear. And validation from others will never replace the confidence you need to build within yourself. The strongest, most spiritually grounded people in this world are not the ones who never feel fear. They are the ones who refuse to let fear make their decisions. They understand that fear is part of the journey, but they do not allow it to dictate their path. They know that true faith is not about having all the answers. It's about moving forward even when the answers are unclear. They trust in something greater than their own doubts. They step into the unknown, not because they are fearless, but because they know that fear is not a good enough reason to stay stuck. So let me ask you, how many times have you let fear talk you out of something you knew in your heart you were meant to do? How many times have you delayed taking action because you convinced yourself you needed more time to think it through? How many times have you let overthinking rob you of an opportunity and experience, a moment of growth? And the real question is, how much longer will you let it continue? At some point, you have to decide that fear will no longer have control over your choices. At some point, you have to trust that you are capable of handling whatever happens next. At some point, you have to stop waiting for the perfect moment and realize that the only thing standing between you and the life you were meant to live is the decision to act. Because fear will always be there. Doubt will always creep in. But confidence, real, unshakable confidence, is built in the moments when you choose faith over fear. There is a kind of peace that comes from knowing who you are, from trusting your journey, from believing that no matter what happens, you are exactly where you need to be. It's the kind of peace that allows you to walk through life with confidence, knowing that every step you take is guided by something greater than your own understanding. But overthinking steals that peace. It replaces clarity with confusion, faith with doubt, and purpose with hesitation. When you overthink, you disrupt the stillness that allows you to hear your own inner wisdom. You flood your mind with so many what-ifs and worst-case scenarios that you can't even recognize the truth when it's right in front of you. Instead of feeling grounded in your decisions, you feel lost in them. Instead of trusting yourself, you second-guess every thought, every feeling, every instinct. And the more you do this, the more disconnected you become from that deep, unshakable confidence that comes from within. Think about a time when you felt completely at peace with yourself. Maybe it was a moment when you weren't worried about the future, when you weren't trying to control every little detail, when you were simply present. In that moment, you weren't overanalyzing, you were just being, and that's the difference. Spiritual confidence is not about knowing everything, it's about trusting that you don't have to. It's about releasing the need for absolute certainty and embracing the flow of life. But overthinking keeps you stuck in a place where trust feels impossible because your mind is too busy trying to calculate every possible outcome. And the worst part is, the more you overthink, the further you drift from that place of peace. You start to feel restless, anxious, uncertain. Your mind becomes a battlefield where every decision feels like a war, every possibility feels like a risk, and every step forward feels like an invitation to failure. You become so caught up in analyzing life that you forget to actually live it. And what is spirituality without presence? What is confidence without trust? What is faith if it's constantly overshadowed by doubt? Overthinking convinces you that if you just think long enough, if you just analyze every detail, you'll finally find the perfect answer, the one that guarantees success, the one that eliminates all risks, the one that makes everything make sense. But life doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't happen in certainty, it happens in trust. Confidence isn't built in hesitation, it's built in action. And peace doesn't come from having all the answers, it comes from knowing that you don't need them. And that's the shift that needs to happen. You need to stop looking for peace in the mind and start finding it in the spirit. Because the mind will always search for something to worry about, something to solve, something to question. But the Spirit already knows. The Spirit doesn't need endless calculations or guarantees. It simply trusts. And when you stop overthinking and start trusting, that's when true confidence begins to grow. So ask yourself, how much of your inner peace have you sacrificed to overthinking? How many nights have you spent replaying conversations, worrying about decisions, analyzing situations that are already out of your control? How many moments of clarity have you destroyed by drowning them in unnecessary doubt? And at what point do you say enough is enough? At some point, you have to decide that your peace is worth more than your need for control. At some point, you have to trust that not every question needs an answer, not every doubt needs to be entertained, not every fear needs to be validated. At some point, you have to surrender, not because you're giving up, but because you're finally choosing to believe in something greater than your own overanalyzing mind. Because real confidence, the kind that cannot be shaken, doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing that you don't have to. There is a power that exists beyond the mind, a deep, undeniable wisdom that flows through you when you learn to trust something greater than yourself. It's that voice that speaks to you in moments of clarity, the feeling that pulls you in a certain direction without needing an explanation. It's the connection that gives you strength when everything around you seems uncertain. But when you overthink, you cut yourself off from that power. You replace intuition with doubt, faith with logic, and divine guidance with endless mental noise. Overthinking creates a barrier between you and the higher wisdom that is always available to you. It makes you believe that you have to figure everything out on your own, that you have to control every outcome, that you have to make sense of every situation before you can move forward. But spirituality doesn't work that way. Faith doesn't require proof. It requires trust, confidence in yourself, in your journey, in the unseen forces guiding your steps. The moment you allow overthinking to take over, that connection weakens. You start questioning the very things you once felt certain about. You start second-guessing whether the path you're on is the right one. You start looking for signs, but because your mind is so cluttered with doubt, you miss them. Have you ever noticed that the answers you seek often come in moments of stillness? When you stop analyzing, when you stop forcing, when you simply let go, that's when clarity arrives. But when you overthink, you block that process. You fill your mind with so many thoughts, so many fears, so many unnecessary worries that there's no space left for wisdom to come through. It's like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a storm. The guidance is always there, but you're too busy creating noise to hear it. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the more disconnected you feel, not just from yourself, but from the very source of strength that is meant to support you. You start relying only on logic, only on analysis, only on what you can physically see and measure. And while logic has its place, it will never be enough to guide you through the moments that require faith. There are things in life that cannot be figured out through thinking alone. There are paths that can only be walked through trust. There are opportunities that will only reveal themselves after you take the first step. When you overthink, you hesitate. When you hesitate, you miss moments that were meant for you. And when you miss those moments, you start believing that maybe you're not capable, maybe you're not worthy, maybe you're not ready. But the truth is, you were always capable, you were always worthy, you were always ready. The only thing that held you back was your mind convincing you otherwise. You don't need to have all the answers before you move forward. You don't need to figure out every detail before you take action. You don't need to overanalyze what your heart already knows. What you need is trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your journey, trust in the divine timing that is always at work. Because when you trust, you make space for clarity. When you trust, you allow guidance to come through. When you trust, you break free from the endless cycle of doubt and step into a confidence that cannot be shaken. And so the real question is, are you willing to let go of the need to control every outcome? Are you willing to quiet the noise and listen to the wisdom that has been waiting for you all along? Are you willing to stop overthinking and start trusting? Because the moment you do, everything changes. Overthinking is not just about hesitation, it's about identity. It seeps into the way you see yourself, the way you define your worth, the way you interpret your own journey. The more you overthink, the more you start questioning who you are. You begin to doubt your abilities, your choices, your path, and over time, that doubt chips away at your confidence, leaving you unsure, hesitant, disconnected from the version of yourself that once moved with certainty. It starts subtly. Maybe you question a decision, replay a conversation, analyze a moment that has already passed. At first, it feels like you're just being careful, just making sure you're on the right track. But then it becomes a habit. You second-guess your instincts, wonder if you're making the wrong moves, start looking to others for validation instead of trusting your own judgment. And before you know it, you've created a pattern of doubt that weakens your self-belief. The more you analyze, the less you trust yourself. The more you seek external answers, the more disconnected you become from your own inner wisdom. And this is where overthinking does the most damage. It creates an identity crisis. You start identifying more with your fears than with your potential. You start defining yourself by your doubts rather than your strengths. You convince yourself that because you struggle with making decisions, you must not be capable. Because you hesitate, you must not be ready. Because you overanalyze, you must be unworthy of confidence. But none of that is true. That is just the illusion that overthinking creates. Real confidence is not about never having doubts. It's about not letting those doubts define you. It's about choosing to trust yourself even when your mind tries to convince you otherwise. But when you fall into the trap of overthinking, you hand over your confidence to fear. You let hesitation become your identity. And once that happens, everything in your life is affected. Your relationships, your career, your faith, your ability to take risks, your willingness to step into new opportunities. You see, your mind will always try to protect you. It will tell you to be careful, to wait, to analyze every possible outcome. But confidence is built in movement, not in hesitation. Growth happens when you step forward, not when you stay stuck in doubt. The strongest, most spiritually grounded people in this world are not the ones who never feel fear or uncertainty. They are the ones who refuse to let those things dictate their actions. They have learned that confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you create by trusting yourself again and again, even in the face of uncertainty. And this is why breaking free from overthinking is so important. Because if you let it, it will convince you that you are not enough. It will tell you that you need more time, more knowledge, more certainty before you can move forward. But that is a lie. You are enough now. You have always been enough, and the only thing standing between you and the unshakable confidence you desire is the decision to stop questioning yourself and start believing in yourself again. So let me ask you, who are you when you're not overthinking? Who are you when you move with trust instead of fear? Who are you when you let go of the doubts that have been weighing you down? Because that version of you already exists. It has always existed. And the moment you stop overanalyzing, the moment you stop questioning your worth, the moment you stop feeding the self-doubt that overthinking creates, that is the moment you step back into the person you were always meant to be. Overthinking is not just a habit, it's a pattern that keeps you trapped in the same cycle, preventing you from stepping into the confidence and faith you were meant to have. It's a silent thief, stealing opportunities, joy, and clarity right from under you. You tell yourself you're just being cautious, just making sure you don't make the wrong decision, just analyzing things so you can be prepared. But in reality, you're not preparing, you're procrastinating. You're delaying your own growth, holding yourself back from the action that would actually build your confidence. Nothing changes when you're stuck in your head. No progress happens while you're going back and forth in your mind, debating every little detail, trying to predict every possible outcome. Progress happens in movement. Clarity comes through action. Confidence is built when you step forward despite the uncertainty, not when you wait until you feel 100% ready. But this is where overthinking traps you. It makes you believe that you need certainty before you can act, when in reality, certainty comes from action. You don't become confident by thinking about being confident. You become confident by doing the things that scare you, by taking the steps even when doubt is present, by proving to yourself over and over again that you are capable. Every time you overthink, you're reinforcing a habit of hesitation. You're strengthening the belief that you can't trust yourself, that you need more time, that you need more information before you can make a move. But that's not true. You already have enough to take the next step. You already know what you need to do. The only thing stopping you is the story you keep telling yourself. The story that says you need to be perfect before you can start, that you need to have all the answers before you can act, that you need to eliminate all risks before you can move forward. But life doesn't work that way. Faith doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't work that way. Every person who has ever accomplished something great had moments of doubt. They had moments where they questioned themselves, moments where they felt uncertain, moments where fear whispered that they might fail. But they didn't let those moments define them. They didn't let overthinking keep them stuck. They made a choice to act, to trust, to move forward, even when they didn't have all the answers. And that's the choice you have to make. Because the truth is, nothing will change until you decide it's time to stop overthinking and start living. Nothing will shift until you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start making the moment you're in right now the perfect one. Nothing will transform until you stop letting fear dictate your actions and start trusting yourself again. So here's the real question. How much longer are you going to let overthinking steal your confidence? How much longer are you going to let doubt control your choices? How much longer are you going to wait before you finally decide to believe in yourself? Because the time is now. Not tomorrow, not someday, not when you feel more ready. Now.